It has not been long since we spoke with Julie Matthews, juliematthews.ca. It's important, though, that we talk to her again because it's Fraud Prevention Month. And we are going to find out what the latest is that we should be watching out for so that we are not victims of fraud and scams.
Reluctantly.
This podcast reluctantly sponsored by ThompsonMortgages.com. If you are set to renew your mortgage in 2026, reach out to Thompson Mortgages first. TimberBuiltHomes.ca. Homes and cottages, recreational dwellings, and more at TimberBuiltHomes.ca. Concept Clothing and Culture. Amazing custom-made clothes for men and for women at CONXEPPT.com. And Wendy Campbell, realtor at BlackmoreRealEstate.ca. If you would like to list your home, or if you're searching for your forever home, email Wendy at BlackmoreRealEstate.ca. WENDE at BlackmoreRealEstate.ca.
Reluctantly.
Hi, Julie. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Terry. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You know what? When we did the podcast and it was released in early November of 2025, of all of the podcasts that I have recorded, I thought it was one of the most important, if not the most important. And it was all because of the information that you provided. That completely blew me away. We all hear about scams and fraud and the victims of scams and fraud, but I was absolutely floored, really surprised to find out the difference in the demographics now of the people who are becoming fraud victims compared to what we are used to hearing, which is seniors.
hmm Yes. I mean, scams are everywhere. I mean, we all receive the emails, the text messages, the phone calls, and there's a big problem. A lot of people say, well, I would never fall for that. And, an RCMP officer told me once, if you think that you will never fall for this, you are probably going to be next. And I think that's the way we all need to look at it is there really is a scam out there for everyone. It's just a matter of timing. And if we get a little too cocky that we are not at risk, then chances are we might make ourselves a target.
The other thing, just the reference to the conversation that you were having with the RCMP officer saying that if you don't think you're ever going to fall for this, you're going to be next. It may be a chance that it's already happened. And it's one of those delayed fraud scam things where maybe your information has been sold, maybe a credit card has been breached, and whoever has that information now is just waiting or just slowly putting little $2 amounts or 69-cent amounts on your credit card to see if you notice. It might be happening. That's why it's so important that you're diligent, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many people I know who never even look at their bank statements or credit card statements every month. And so they're not even catching the things like you just mentioned, $2 here and there. But the other thing is, fraudsters will steal our information and they might save it for months or even years before they choose to target us. They'll collect the information, share it with their scammer friends, and it can become part of a larger operation down the road. So it's really important for us to take steps to protect ourselves and our families, of course.
Here's just the first question. How often should we change our passwords on online banking or a credit card or we pay our bills through an app or something like that? How often should we be changing our password just as a general rule?
I think if you asked financial institutions, everyone has a slightly different take on that. I think they should be changed once a year. And I think that makes sense. I think it's more important sometimes to make sure our passwords are longer, more complicated. Like now, for example, they recommend you use a pass phrase instead of a password, using numbers, letters, capitals, etc. But it's more important to make sure that password is long, harder to guess, because with AI, it's easier for them to guess and find out our passwords now. And also so critical to never reuse passwords, because you mentioned breaches, right? So if they breached a clothing store where we happen to give a credit card number and some information to, they might gather the password there. And if I'm reusing it on Amazon or somewhere else, and they're like, hey, we're going to check and see where else Julie might be using that password. If I'm reusing them, I am very much at risk.
There's a thing through like, do you have an iPhone? I see sometimes in the pictures you're holding up phone,
I do.
or yeah, okay, it's iPhone. So there's a thing in the iPhone where you can go in there and look to see if any of your passwords have been breached, or if they need to be changed, or if there's alerts or anything like that. You're familiar with that?
I am, yeah. And I mean, I've seen it pop up on my phone, and I'm sorry to say that I have a lot of old passwords on websites that I haven't visited or bought anything on for many years, and it's telling me that those passwords have been compromised. So it's a big job for me to go back in there and change all those passwords, which is why I think a lot of people don't do it. But it's important for me to maybe go to some of those websites that I forgot I ever even logged into, because maybe I bought one Christmas gift for my mom 10 years ago. And, it doesn't even occur to me that that information, I might still be using that email account today. What if I'm still using one of those passwords? I'm putting myself at risk every time.
Okay, let's talk about what's the scam that's absolutely blowing up right now that most Canadians maybe still don't know about.
I think investment scams is something we don't often think about. And it's definitely the biggest scam that we're seeing. And artificial intelligence, AI technology is just taking it to that next level. So I don't know if you've seen on Facebook or Instagram lately, but there's an AI video of actor Ryan Reynolds telling us that the federal government has approved a certain cryptocurrency plan. Have you seen this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this one is very convincing. It's all over social media, and a lot of people are falling for this. It's the same thing as, the fake videos. In 2024, we saw Elon Musk and Prime Minister Trudeau. Now we're seeing fake videos where AI is being used with Prime Minister Carney. And a lot of people are falling for it. I talked to a lady the other day that fell for one of the Prime Minister videos. It started with $250. She's now lost $15,000 in this cryptocurrency scam.
We talked on the last episode when I had you on that was released, and even if you're listening to this one for the first time and you didn't listen to the one previously or watch it on YouTube, I strongly urge you to check it out. Watch the one that it was released on November 4th, reluctantlypodcast.com. And I couldn't get over how how blatant things were, and the wide range of people, like I said at the top of the show. We talked in that episode about your career and your trajectory to the point that you were at now, when you were a news journalist, and then you went into the sheriff's department, and now you are juliematthews.ca, helping people fight scams and fraud, and educating people on that. Have you personally been scammed or found out that you've been a victim of fraud?
People ask me that question quite often, and I wish I had a really good story almost. I feel like it'd be more exciting to tell people that I've been scammed. I've come close a couple of times, and the one that almost got me was the shipping scam. I was expecting a parcel from the UK. It was coming close to the holiday season, and the scammer just happened to send me an email claiming that there was a problem with a parcel delivery from the United Kingdom. And so I logged on, I started to click the link and like enter my information. And then I thought, I feel like the company or the website I ordered this from would have probably let me know if there was a problem. So I backed out of this. And my fraud knowledge wasn't as good back then as it is now. I feel like I've educated myself a bit more as well. But it was close. I mean, the logos were good, the wording was convincing, and it definitely was a scam.
Do you find yourself now where you've got almost like butterfly antennas or cat whiskers, where you can, you go, you just like that? It just almost, I see that happening, and I want to go and help that person right now, like a superhero.
Yeah, I was recently at the cell phone store because I'm thinking about upgrading my phone right now. And a lady walked in and started talking to the person behind the till beside me. And she's like, she was a senior, and she's like, I clicked on something and now everything is wrong in my phone. And the employee, this was Belle, and the employee was helping her and asking her about all these apps. Now, a senior shouldn't have 15 different messaging apps like Telegram and WhatsApp and everything else, but but she had clicked on something and now all of a sudden they had taken over her cell phone. So I could not help myself. I had to speak up and say, so, do you know what you clicked on? And have you tried this? And have you notified your financial institution? And I was also curious. I was asking the cell phone provider, okay, what do you do when people come in and ask those questions? And they talked about, the repair and tech companies that they refer people to. But that's what I mean. Everywhere around us, this is happening. You could go to a store and a senior walks up, or anyone is suddenly buying $2,000 in gift cards. I would not be able to stop myself from being nosy and being like, I'm sorry, why are you buying those gift cards? You're not talking to anyone online right now, are you?
Hmm. What about AI? I mean, it's one thing to have direct contact with people, and now we talked about it last time, and there's seems to be more and more technology that provides opportunities for these ne'er-do-wells to fleece you with stuff that it seems so real, and the AI is just getting better and better all the time. What do we have to watch for?
It is, yeah. Artificial intelligence is just another tool. I mean, back in the day when cell phones first came on the scene, scammers started using them. And so some law enforcement agencies will say, don't be scared of AI. If we use the same tips and tools that we always have to spot a scam, then we're still protected, whether it looks convincing or not. So things like, watch out for urgency or pressure. If you're being asked to provide personal or financial information. I mean, these are still really good tips that carry through from before AI until now. But, we are often sharing things made with AI that look like a funny video, or we're clicking on a link. And, I think that's where a lot of that danger is they're now using artificial intelligence for social engineering to sort of say, okay, what could I send Terry that he would be more likely to share on social media? What could I send you that would make you more likely to click on a link? That's kind of what they're using it for as well, which I think is a little bit concerning, because they can now really target us in a way and study us in a way that maybe they couldn't before.
I just find it. I mean, as soon as you have a cell phone, you got that in your pocket. You're being tracked. You're being watched. You're being this. You're being, and I mean, it's just one of the things that comes with the technology. When I was watching your social media, I believe it was on Instagram, you were talking about the numbers. And the thing that floored me about the numbers was not only how high they are, about the amount of money in Canada that is fleeced from people who may or may not know, but the fact that only 10%, is that correct, is even reported?
Yeah, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre estimates, and this has been the case for many years, only 5 to 10% of scams are actually reported. Victims just don't come forward.
What are the numbers that we know of, that 5 to 10%? How much money are we talking about here?
Yeah, so the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre just recently released their numbers for losses in 2025, and they say that reported losses in Canada to fraud $704 million, with $351 million of that being lost to investment scams.
Let me tell you about my mortgage broker for a moment. Mike at ThompsonMortgages.com has been client-focused for over 17 years. They take care of all the financial components of your real estate purchase so that you can concentrate on finding the perfect home. Whether you're a first-time buyer or renewing like so many other people in 2026, let ThompsonMortgages.com work for you. They find the lender, and it costs you nothing for their services. The lender pays. Download the app and get pre-approved in 60 seconds. ThompsonMortgages.com, 780-413-6743. Tell them you heard about them on the Reluctantly podcast.
Reluctantly.
This podcast is reluctantly sponsored by Wendy Campbell, realtor at blackmorerealestate.ca, serving the greater Edmonton area, proudly Canadian and locally owned. Contact Wendy at blackmorerealestate.ca. That's WENDE at blackmorerealestate.ca. Why does she not have a Y in her name? I don't know why. It's none of my business, probably none of yours too. Wendy has over 20 years of home sales experience. She has extensive knowledge of the new and previously owned home market. She can help you out with a free market evaluation of your home. And if you're looking to buy your forever home, she's got all the resources to help you with that as well. Not to mention, she's a builder partner with Rowett Homes. Wendy at blackmorerealestate.ca. WENDE at blackmorerealestate.ca.
Reluctantly.
Okay, let's just say 10% are reported. I know you said 5 to 10%, but that means 10 times. That means $7 billion.
Yeah, billions. Billions is being lost for sure. And it's ruining people's lives. I mean, I talk to victims and their families all the time who've lost their house, their RSPs, their life savings, having to get power of attorney for someone in their world because they're sending away money to a scam, talking to people who just wanted to have enough money to take their family on a trip. And it just starts small, right? It sort of goes back to that too good to be true, and the fact that we all wish we could make a little bit more money, right? And still, a police officer told me the other day, it kind of goes back to that greed piece. But I think greed is a tough word to say. I mean, it's true, but really it comes down to just wanting something better, right? And whether it's job scams, you're applying for a job and you just want a better opportunity, or you're falling for a cryptocurrency scam because you just want to do something better for your family. They're targeting those vulnerabilities. And yes, we talk about seniors all the time, but all of us are vulnerable. It's just a matter of which scam.
Well, you talk about the seniors thing, the grandparent scam. How that's evolved. It's not as elementary as it used to be. How has that evolved to get even more complicated so that people have a harder time trying to determine whether or not it's fraud?
hmm Yeah, the grandparent scam is a big one because now that is a case where AI technology is making that scam so much more convincing. They're using AI for voice cloning. So they only need about 3 to 10 seconds of someone's voice, and then they can make that voice say anything. So if they can find a sample of audio of someone's voice, let's say a grandchild, a niece, a nephew, and then use that to then call someone in their family pretending to be them in trouble. That's a huge thing that they're using. And I've actually been also talking about online obituaries. We share too much information in online obituaries. When we lose someone in our family, we list the first names of everyone who is left behind mourning that person. But a scammer now has a list of the first names of everyone in your family. So when they call a grandparent, now they sound like a family member in trouble. They've got a list of all the names they can use against them. And then they'll use things like spoofing technology, and they can make, whatever name and number they want show up on your call display. Are you
That is
scared,
just
Terry? I know it's so much.
That is just something that I'm guessing, and most people just like me who might be listening or watching would have never thought of that. It's an obituary. It's the something you pay homage, you pay respect, whatever the case. You mention the family of the dearly deceased who is there and so affected by this. But I never thought of that. I mean, that's just one of those things where you put one and one together, and all of a sudden you've got some douchebag that's trying to take money from the family or scam somebody. Maybe it's the widow or widower of the person who died that all of a sudden, hey, I know what I can do, and I can do it because of all this information. Man,
Yeah.
that's
And it's something innocent, right? We're just trying to honor the person in our family that we've lost. We don't stop to think about it. A lot of people don't include last names and they think that that's protecting them, and it is in some ways, but I mean, look at some online obituaries. It's shocking how much information is in there even about the person who passed away. So sometimes you see an identity theft piece where now there's so much information in that obituary that they might be able to go out and literally create an identity and still, get credit cards and get loans and everything in the name of the person who's deceased.
uh, marketplace. There's apps, and obviously people are going to go to the first one that comes to mind. But marketplace apps where you can go on and sell things, and that's a kind of a new hunting ground for scammers, isn't it?
Yeah, all of the buy and sell websites, apps, and pages out there, the scams really often come down to the deposit. They really want you to send a deposit for that lawnmower, that patio set, that air conditioner before you ever see the item. So that's still the biggest problem we're seeing. Recently, a couple summers ago in Edmonton, 12 people showed up at a house in Edmonton all looking for the air conditioner that they had sent a deposit for. The people living there had no idea what they were talking about because they had taken a picture off a Home Depot or some website, created a fake ad for the air conditioner on a buy and sell page, and then just took deposits from everyone who would send it. And this is happening all the time, along with e-transfer frauds. Police are putting warnings out about that as well. So you just really need to not pay in any way until you see the item in person.
The other thing too, you mentioned about how much you've referenced talking to police a couple of times in the show today. I suppose there's an awful lot of communication between you and police when it comes to marketplace or buy and sell about the meetup places and making sure that you're in a public place rather than having it at your home as well. Because on the other end of the scam or fraud or 12 people showing up to purchase pick up the air conditioner that they've got a deposit on, but there's also the danger of the physical confrontation as well. Is that something that you kind of delve into, or is that not really your department?
Well, any kind of warnings that I can put out, the better. I mean, that one goes more to, actually assault and robbery rather than frauds and scams. But, I get many questions about buy and sell transactions. And yes, definitely. I just did some talks recently in Jasper and Hinton, and I received a lot of questions about that. And we talked about how the safest place to do those transactions is in a police or RCMP parking lot or some sort of public place. Bring someone with you. Edmonton police put out a warning not long ago about, if you're showing up with a lot of cash to buy, a high priced item, maybe it's jewelry, maybe it's a car, there's nothing to stop those individuals from showing up with five friends and robbing you or if you're the one selling, taking that item from you. And we've definitely seen cases, and this is a worldwide problem. It's happening everywhere. So safety is definitely something we need to keep in mind with these transactions, not just being, scammed.
As you're talking about all that, I'm listening and I'm thinking, okay, I've done that. I've done that. I've done that. How am I still even, how can I still walk? How have I not got a black? I mean, how have I not had both arms broken? Because I've sold a car on buy and sell.
Yeah.
And the guy paid cash. What was I thinking?
Well, but we're still trusting, right? Like it all comes down to that, and that's how we become targeted, right? I mean, we're so polite, we're trusting. We are all getting a little bit more skeptical and a little bit more careful. But it's sad, isn't it, Terry, that we have to think about that when we're going to buy a car or do some sort of simple transaction. I still do buy and sell a lot of things online, and I never send a deposit ever. And I always meet in a public place unless I know the person. And, I'm still safe. You're still safe. These transactions can be safe. You just need to be careful and make sure you check out the person you're dealing with as well.
Red flags. Have you got 3 or 5 or I don't know. You probably have a list of dozens of them, but are there 3 red flags that people should immediately think, Julie said, don't?
Three main red flags for dealing with any scam. Really, if there's any kind of urgency, pressure, act now. Time to walk away. That doesn't matter what scam we're talking about or a transaction online. That's definitely a huge red flag. If they're asking for personal and financial information, especially if they're asking for this up front, and then too good to be true. I mean, it's an old tip, but it's still a good one. We need to pull back and pause and think about it and ask ourselves, does this make sense? Is this a little too cheap for that patio set or, this iPhone that I'm looking at online? We just need to slow down a bit more and think about it.
And talk to someone you trust. Talk to a friend, a parent, a son or a daughter, depending on what your situation is. If you have been scammed, if you are a victim of fraud, of a scam, regardless of how it happened, through phishing, through like an email or text, or you clicked on something that you probably went, "Ugh, I shouldn't have done that." When you realize that you've been scammed, What should you do in the first hour of you knowing that?
Okay, if you've lost money in a scam and you know that you're compromised, you need to contact your financial institution because we're going to be worried whether you clicked on something or you gave information that it could come back and they could steal more. So you need to contact your financial institution. You should always go to police because there might be a local connection to some of these scams. They have a lot of individuals here in Alberta that could be wandering around picking up money, moving gift cards, etc. So make sure you're contacting police. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, they will take information from people even if they did not lose money. So it's really good to just report to them so they can track those trends and try and slow down some of these scammers and work on, the larger operations internationally. If you're worried about your identity at all, it's also a good idea to contact TransUnion or Equifax, the credit reporting agencies, because you can put some alerts on there to make sure no one's getting a credit card in your name, a loan in your name, and that can be really helpful to make sure that no one's doing anything bad in your name.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you how excited I am to welcome a new partner on the Reluctantly podcast. It's Timber Built Homes. Their focus is timber homes and cottages, year-round living, recreational dwellings, and beyond that, pavilions, barns, and freestanding timber-built offices. Complete information is available at timberbuilthomes.ca, and it's also where you'll learn about Timberbuilt's Home in a Box. It's fantastic. An entire home package shipped in a sea can anywhere in the world right to your build site. See the floor plans, sample builds, photo gallery, and most important, the prices right on their website, timberbuilthomes.ca. And please let them know that you heard about them on the Reluctantly podcast. Hey, give me a minute to tell you about Concept Clothing and Culture. CONXEPPT.com. Suits and tuxedos. And you can find them right here in Edmonton. They're handmade suits, custom tuxedos, tailored essentials, suits starting at $1,188. You choose everything. The color, the fabric, even the stuff on the inside. The little pokey pocket thing that sticks out. It's amazing. It's a terrific experience. You can go through and get something as fancy as a tuxedo, or you can start with outerwear, matching sets, tailored essentials. They even do shirts, trousers, vests, and they do amazing couture for women. CONXEPPT.com. Concept, Clothing and Culture. Look your best.
Reluctantly.
I suppose this might be a stupid question based on the figures that you gave from like the statistics about only 5 to 10% of the scams are even reported, and that's to the tune of over $700 million. So even if it's 10%, 10 times that is $7 billion. Are scammers actually getting caught more often than not, or are they getting away with it all the time?
Well, I mean, there's just so many scams and frauds out there. Police will tell you we are not going to arrest our way out of this problem. There are just too many scams and frauds out there coming at us from all angles and around the globe. So there are some great fraud investigations happening right here in our province, nationally, internationally, so much great work being done. And we are starting to see the courts give, more stricter sentences, especially for repeat fraudsters. So that's really nice to see. I do think, I don't know that we'll ever think that there's enough being done for this problem, which again is why that education piece and you and I chatting like we are today is so important because the police are doing the best job they can and doing a wonderful job. But if we can educate ourselves and the people who are vulnerable in our world, then hopefully we won't fall for that scam or be victimized in the first place.
Absolutely. I think if somebody's listening or watching this now, I think that the first thing they should do when they're done is they should make sure that they share this information with other people. And it doesn't matter what their age is. Like if you're thinking, oh, my old poor granny, I better make sure that she listens to this, no matter how much you check in. But it's people who are, of course, in their later years, in their midlife, in their early years, people in their late teens and 20s trying to get started. and thinking, oh man, how am I going to get ahead? Well, maybe this seems like an easy way to do it. And then all of a sudden you've got a bank investigator scam going on or something like that. And you're up the creek without a paddle, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really frustrates me that we only talk about seniors being at risk. So I appreciate you bringing that up because, it is really all of us. I taught when I go and talk to youth in schools, we talk about, TikTok scams and fake contests that are targeting them on Snapchat and profiles and platforms that they're on, and then with, the middle-aged demographic, I think sometimes, they're the busiest and they maybe really don't think that they are vulnerable, but it's that sense of invincibility that can get us into trouble and maybe keep us from learning more about how to protect ourselves. I mean, I had a chat recently with a man in his late 20s, and he's in the middle of a romance scam right now. Terry, it was one of the saddest stories I have heard in a long time. He and I were chatting about this and how to protect himself for about 10 or 15 minutes. His phone was dinging the entire time I was speaking to him. And he looked at me and he said, "That's her. That's the scammer." And his phone started ringing and he said, "I have to text her back or she will just keep calling." And I said, you can't send any more money, right? Like, and he's like, "Yeah, I know. I promised myself that this month I would stop." But it's so hard because she's my friend and I'm in love with her and I've been talking to her for months every day. Literally, Terry, in 10 minutes, she called him 3 times and texted him 12 times. Like, that is a severe, concerning, scary situation that person is trapped in right now. And so I've been talking to some people and making sure that people are checking in on him because he's not at the stage where he's ready to face it. When the phone rang, I said to him, "Would you like me to talk to them?" And he said, "No, I'm not ready for that."
I'm just the level of sadness that I feel for that guy is
I
just
know.
off the charts. And we talk about again referencing back to, oh, this only happens to seniors. Well, there's someone who that's happening to. That's the romance scam, or I've also heard of the romance crypto scams. But
Yes.
this can be stuff you can think, oh, that's never going to happen to me, like you mentioned at the top of the podcast. But when you go to a restaurant downtown and you have to pay for parking, and all of a sudden you look up and there's a sign, and then you do that QR code thing with your
Right.
phone to pay for parking. What can happen with that?
Yeah, QR code fraud is a major issue across North America, and yeah, it involves usually them making a fake QR code sticker and then sticking it over top of the real QR codes. And so many communities, or at least in some neighborhoods, have had that happen where QR codes are publicly posted. I don't like QR codes. I don't scan them in public places unless I absolutely trust the source of who has that. If it's in a spot in the public that could be messed with or altered in some way, compromised, I don't use it. I will drive around the block and look for the old school insert my credit card option, or I will download the app, right? And I will pay for it on there because I can research the app and know that I'm on the right one. QR codes are very risky, especially in public places.
And then then you come home and start doing stuff on your computer, and you think, okay, well, I'll just read a few work emails or go online and see what's happening on social media, and then all of a sudden you get a pop up saying that your antivirus, it's time to renew, and maybe you get a subscription. You're going to be charged $499 and unless you call this number immediately. What can happen with that situation?
Yeah, we hear about those pop-ups a lot, whether it's antivirus or often those pop-ups that say, your computer has been compromised and they lock down your computer, call this number. I just talked to a lady this week that did that and called the number and gave remote access to her computer to the person who was claiming to be able to fix this problem. And halfway through, he just started asking more questions and she felt a little bit uncomfortable and eventually hung up, but had to take her computer in to go get checked out, right? And have different spyware and malware and things deleted from her device because that's what they do. When they get remote access, they're going to download programs that will allow them to spy on your device and take information from it, potentially for a long, extended period of time.
What's the scam or fraudulent activity that you heard about recently, maybe since our last podcast, that you were just completely dumbfounded and were like, "What? That happened?" Like, is there something where you just went, "Holy cow."
Yeah, I can tell you a story that is one I haven't heard before. It's not a romance scam, but I would call it a hockey fan scam. I actually was contacted by a lady who thought that Connor McDavid stole $10,000 from her. She was contacted on an app. She was in a car accident a number of years ago and has some memory loss issues. And I believe, as we've talked about on the show before, fraudsters target those people. But she claimed that Connor McDavid, was reaching out to fans and wanting to get to know them better. And he asked her, do you have a lot of debt? And she said, well, I have, debt on my credit card. And he said, well, if you help me with something, I will pay off your credit card for you and give you an extra $10,000. Since June, she's been buying $100 gift cards for who she thought was Connor McDavid on her credit card, thinking that he was going to then pay off her credit card and give her an extra $10,000. She's a huge Oilers fan. She thought she was really talking to him, really communicating with him. And then when she realized she had lost $9,800 and nothing was changing, she started reaching out to Connor McDavid's wife's business in Edmonton, trying to get information. And, I spent 45 minutes with her on the phone recently because she's not educated on scams. She had no idea that anyone could or would impersonate a celebrity. And I had to be the one to explain to her that it wasn't really Connor McDavid that had taken her money.
Again, it's heartbreaking. It
It is.
is absolutely heartbreaking. It really is. $10,000 here, $50,000 there. God knows how much from people who've never reported it because they're too embarrassed. Let's look at that, the embarrassment aspect of it. People don't want to admit that they've been duped, but you have to swallow your pride and tell somebody so that you can get some help, right?
Yes, please. If it's, one of the things I really stress and I would love to see is that people would come forward and report these things more, but also not just to police, but talk to someone in your world. Like the woman I just described with the Connor McDavid, our fake Connor McDavid scam. I said to her, do you have someone in your world that you can tell? Just confide in one person so you don't feel alone. And she said, there's no one. Everyone would laugh at me. And it's just heartbreaking because that's why we see the 5 to 10% reporting numbers, right? Because they're scared to tell someone. I mean, Terry, in your world, do you have someone that if you got scammed and lost a lot of money and were feeling maybe slightly foolish, even though you shouldn't, do you have someone that you could tell that to that wouldn't laugh and would support you, do you think?
Yeah, I am very fortunate to have a number of people that I could go to that would help me. Yes.
Yeah. And I think many of us do. And I think sometimes we need to give our family and friends more credit as well. So we need family and friends to be more supportive and make sure we're not laughing at people once they've fallen for a scam. But we also need to try and have more faith in the people around us. We need to find one person to confide in. And I think it makes people feel braver. When I talk to victims who are scared to tell anyone in their family, they always tell me by the end of the conversation, I feel so much better after talking to you. And that is so key. We need to talk about scams and fraud more. We talk about the grandparent scam, it's all over the news, right? No one's scared to talk about the fact, maybe, or less people are worried about talking about that particular scam because it's very clever. But other scams, people just feel a lot more embarrassment. And we really need to change that.
What about learning opportunities or tips or something? I'm looking at juliematthews.ca and you've got, about everything about you and presentations in the news, Julie's videos, resources and contact information and that it's all about empowering Canadians and communities with fraud prevention awareness and presentations. You're traveling all over the place. Do you have learning opportunities for people that are happening in the very near future? Maybe in conjunction with Fraud Prevention Month?
Yes, people can reach out to me on social media and I can give them an updated list because it's always changing. But for example, the Mundare Library, if you know where that is, the town of Mundare is bringing me out 3 weeks in a row to do education sessions, 3 different ones, one focusing on AI scams, one focusing on romance and friendship scams, and then one just big overview of scams. So I'm the next 3 Tuesdays in a row, I'm there. I'm at speaking at a church in South Edmonton next week. I'm headed to Red Deer twice this month, including a seniors facility, talking to the Chamber of Commerce. So, I'm even going to the Okanagan in June to do a bunch of seniors presentations there. So I'm really excited to expand that knowledge because I think, as I said, we need to talk about scams and fraud more often. And the more people I can reach, the better.
Julie, again, I think this is so valuable, and I applaud you. You have no idea how highly I hold you in regard
Oh,
with
that's so
doing
sweet. Thank you.
it. I think it is immensely important that, and I'm absolutely thrilled for you that you're able to go around and tell people about the opportunities to avoid this. I know you're passionate about it. I know you're incredibly knowledgeable about it. I know you have the resources on so many different levels to help people, and I hope you just knock it out of the park with every session that you're given the opportunity to give.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for those kind words. I really appreciate it. And if anyone is caught in a scam or has a family member or friend that is, they can find me on my website and reach out to me. I try to talk to people or forward them, refer them to other resources as much as I can. I just don't want anyone to feel like they're alone.
JulieMatthews.ca. All of her social media following information is right there at the top of the website. And be diligent and be wary, and don't be afraid to reach out if you need help, and don't be afraid to give people help, and don't laugh at them. They have fallen for something because they are unknowing, or it was just that good of a scam. And please don't ridicule them in any way. Give them the help that they deserve. And keep in mind, Fraud Prevention Month may be in March, but we should be aware of it always, right?
Absolutely. It's a year-round problem. I'm a scam nerd, so I talk about it year-round, but Fraud Prevention Month is a good excuse and a good way to find so much more information online from law enforcement agencies and government. There's so many great tips. So it's a good excuse if you haven't educated yourself on frauds and scams, this is a good month to do it.
I'm sure this will not be the last time we chat on this podcast. I think it's immensely important. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. I would come back on the show anytime.
Reluctantly.
This podcast reluctantly sponsored by ThompsonMortgages.com. If you are set to renew your mortgage in 2026, reach out to Thompson Mortgages first. TimberBuiltHomes.ca. Homes and cottages, recreational dwellings, and more at TimberBuiltHomes.ca. Concept Clothing and Culture. Amazing custom-made clothes for men and for women at CONXEPPT.com. And Wendy Campbell, realtor at BlackmoreRealEstate.ca. If you would like to list your home, or if you're searching for your forever home, email Wendy at BlackmoreRealEstate.ca. WENDE at BlackmoreRealEstate.ca.
Reluctantly.